Good afternoon, folks. If you just take your seats, please. Thank you very much. This is session 3. Over the last decade or so, marketing's become really reliant on digital channels, data, and automation. So that's what we're going to be discussing in this session. Andrea Linehan is Global Chief Marketing Officer for Xi. And we were talking earlier about return on investment. What she wants to look at is, yeah, that's great, invest by all means, but do your sums actually make sense at the end of the day? So, Andrea, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to wear a bit of a CFO hat and talk about how you can find the hidden value and sweat the value, but more importantly, watch out for those costly pitfalls.
Well, go on then. Do you want to do it from here, or do you want to do it from the podium?
I will go there.
Right, fine. I thought there was a change. I thought there was a change of plan there. I thought, wait a minute, what's going on?
Thanks again, Mark. So, Andrea Linehan, Global Chief Marketing Officer for a fintech called Xi. The reason I'm going to wear my CFO hat, even though I've never been a CFO, I am a chartered management accountant, so I do tend to look at all things marketing with a bit of a finance lens. So some of the topics I'm going to go through today is a bit around the economics of MarTech. We're probably our own worst enemies as marketers. We tend to avoid that piece of it. I'm going to talk about what that means from a marketing, product and technology perspective, particularly when it comes to roadmap, the traps which we all fall into, and then just getting down to what it really means, and that's a return on investment. So MarTech Economics. Economics can be quite binary, and it tends to be much more rational and logic-ridden. And I've put in, if anybody's very interested in MarTech Economics, I've put in a link there at the bottom to read it. But that's not what I'm going to focus on today, because I'm more interested in the behavioral economics when it comes to buying marketing technologies. We're an interesting breed, marketers, because we tend to think that we're very different to our own customers and that we don't fall foul of typical buying behaviours, but we are human and we do. So I think a lot of you, and I hope a lot of you will recognise this graph in the buying behaviour. And look, if we were following normal market economics, we would be looking at buying our marketing technologies from a very rational perspective and looking at what the company needs as a whole. We would be thinking about, what is this going to cost us? Is this a supplier that we know is going to have limited downtime? All the very black and white elements of it. But as inherent marketers, we also think about the emotional side that a company needs to think about when buying, because we know a brand is more than just a logo and a name. We think about personality, our values, and what that means to partner with other brands, partner with suppliers. So we're always thinking about the fundamentals of brand association, and that's something that comes natural to us, but it doesn't come natural to most technology buyers in the business. But come back to the human bit. Like I said, we are human, and though we'd like to think that we have it all figured out when it comes to our customers' behaviours, we also fall foul of the two major things, which is, what does this mean for me bringing in this marketing technology? And I'll start off with the rational piece. We might really want to make a decision that's fit for the company, but at the end of the day, we want to make our own jobs easier. We want to do it faster. We want to show success. We want to demonstrate a return on effort, a return on investment, to make us look good. But that is obviously encroaching on the emotional side of it. We still want to bring in tools that will make us feel good, that will make us deliver what we said we'd deliver and potentially be in line for that promotion. We want to look good in front of our peers. We want to know and demonstrate thought leadership in our own area. We want to be known for that. And the problem with each of these four corners is that it creates a real dichotomy and creates a lot of traps for people to make swift decisions. Wrong decisions actually create a lot of problems later on the line. So what does some of that look like? I'm in a technology company, so building roadmaps is a very typical day-to-day thing, and often in this tripod with product and technology all the time. And what I find really interesting is that what we don't do as marketers is think about building a marketing technology roadmap. Why is that really important? Well, it's standard for there to be often 20 to 30% of our spend being on our marketing technology. That's really significant. We'll put a lot of thought and planning and strategizing into building out our marketing plans, our campaigns. We will look at the evolution of our brand, around measurement of it. We look at our performance marketing. We look at our affiliate partners. We look at all of that and we'll plan it to the nth degree. But we'll never do that for our marketing technology stack. And what happens? What happens is your designer comes to you and says, you know, there's this really cool asset management tool. It's only 500 quid a month. It'll solve all my problems. It'll make things really efficient. And you know what? There's an API into HubSpot. Super. So you spend 3 months, only 500 quid a month. Not a bother. You upload all your assets into it and you're happy. 4, 5, 6 months down the line, you realize those pain points were solved for, and the API is pretty limited. There's not really much more you can do unless you upgrade to the next level, and it's 10 times the cost, 5,000 grand, or sorry, 5 grand a month. And what are you left with? You're left with building tech debt, and you're stuck, and you either wind back, undo all the work that you've just done with the major migration. You've probably pulled all of these assets into some of your HubSpot campaigns. It's a pretty complex mess, but sure, it was only 500 quid a month. How bad? And this comes back down to here. You know, you make that decision because brilliant, no code, low code, this is the big fad. You know, there's going to be very little integration involved in here. HubSpot said you just need to press this button and it's all integrated. But the reality is the no code, low code is a little bit of a fallacy. It's a nice, you know, starter and entry mode. But the reality is once you're in, you're generally trapped. And I don't believe no code. No such thing as no code. I've yet to have an experience with any of these no code, low code platforms where I haven't gotten into a piece of code and end up dabbling. And that's not my forte. So why is this really important? Because for your MarTech roadmap, you've got to be thinking about where you want to be in not just the next 6 months and solving for the pain now, but where you want to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, and really thinking about those micro decisions that you make or your team makes actually fits into that longer purpose roadmap. And more importantly, is it actually going to, essentially decisions you make today, going to cut your legs off in 2 years' time? And then this comes back to these 3 sets of people: marketers, developers, and engineers. So even operating in the no-code, low-code environment, if you're so lucky to only ever hang out there, the reality is you're going to need the capabilities of marketers, developers, and engineers to come together. So just like you would plan out sprints between your product team and your technology team for your roadmap for the year, you need to be able to do that same thing as a marketer with developers and engineers in your company. Not easy. I probably found one of my biggest challenges is fighting for roadmap time. I might have a fabulous marketing technology roadmap, but that still has to fit into the overall company roadmap if I'm relying on internal developers and engineers. I learned that lesson the hard way in the last couple of years. So something I did very differently this year was I put into my own headcount budget a marketing engineer, and then I donated them over to the engineering side of the house. So they manage them, they look after them, but they're my resource to pull on when I need. And look, that was a bit of a desperation move, but this is the realities. When you go beyond that very basic no-code, low-code, you are going to need to have those capabilities. The other way to consider the no-code, low-code for anybody who's grappling with the decision is it's a little bit like renting a house. Excellent, you don't need to think about any major maintenance, upkeep, you know, it's all there, it's turnkey, but the problem is you can't do any personalization on that house. You can't knock down walls, a lot of times you can't even paint. So it might be fine for a while or a certain period in your life, but you're going to outgrow it really, really quickly. So the same consideration and analogy can be used for the buy or build it. You know, you can buy it in, absolutely, but it'll never be your dream house. It'll be more costly than bringing in your no-code, low-code, and it certainly will from a maintenance and management perspective, but won't be anywhere near as expensive long-term as building. But you will have your own personalised, very bespoke piece of marketing technology. But all of that needs to sit on your overall data strategy. It's very easy to plug and play with a lot of MarTech suppliers throughout the year, over a number of years, but unless they're allowing you to democratize and centralize your data, again, you're going to find yourself with a lot of information that is not synchronized, not only across the business but across your marketing technology. So all that efficiency and effectiveness that they've sold to you isn't actually feasible because none of this data is actually centralized in a way that you can draw real value from it. So getting into the trap. The four main traps that we fall into as marketers, and we've all succumbed to it. The vanity piece, you know, what is that? That is the shiny new tool where peers in the industry are using them. It is the nobody gets fired for IBM, and in our world it's nobody gets fired for buying HubSpot. But the reality is there are the same fallacies that go along with HubSpot as there does with IBM. And don't get me wrong, I love HubSpot. I'm a prolific user, but I'm also very aware of its downfalls. Second one is false promises. This is the diet pills, the cure for baldness, the snake oils, and all of the marketing technologies are the very same. One thing that we definitely don't do as marketers, I think, is really push and force our suppliers of marketing technologies to really provide us with the economics behind the value that they're providing. We're so excited because marketing technology is still fairly new that what they're providing us, the features, the benefits are so shiny new and they're like, excellent, that's going to solve for our problem. But I think we've all been there when we actually integrate, bring it on board, and that we realize that it really is only just the tool and it doesn't really serve up what we hoped it would serve up. So I would encourage everybody, I'll give you a perfect example, one of the ones I really love, and I love when they ask it because I go hell for leather on them, is, you know, this will save you overhead. You know, your staff won't need to spend as many time on you once you have this tool in place. I said, it's really interesting. Can you give me some time on how many hours, for what particular roles is that saved and how many hours a week on average? They can never stump them. The salespeople always get absolutely stumped. They've zero case studies to demonstrate that this actually saves human time and be able to put any economics against what that looks like. So push back. These are the guys that are supposed to go away and figure out what their product, what value it's building. So ask them, force the subject. If they don't have an answer, that's leverage for you, by the way, when you're negotiating on price. Tech debt. This goes back to that no-code, low-code piece, and you know, my digital designer who now has this awesome asset management piece, and we've done all of this integration with HubSpot, but now we can't go any further with it. I have a big lump of tech debt there, and I either need to make the decision, do we just roll that all back, go through the time and effort now, cut our losses, and then think about more a long-term solution, or do we just keep putting on the plasters? And we're all guilty of that, is putting on the plasters, just say, okay, just solve for now. But all we're doing is building up technical debt in our own MarTech stack. And that 20 to 30% budget that we all of a sudden had starts creeping up and up and up. And again, going back to what I referenced earlier around that data dump bit, what you'll end up then is this really fragmented set of marketing technologies that have lots of awesome data sitting in lots of different places, but no way that they can all be integrated, centralized, and where it can all stitch together that story that we know is so important to us. Because what we're looking for is those data points from absolute first touch point right through to lifetime value and to infinity. And if you can't stitch all of those together, then it's pretty useless data for us. So how do you take all of that frustration of the realities of where we're at and actually really thinking about ensuring that your return on investment can stack up? I've no doubt this has been shown a couple of times today, or you've talked about it. You know, we're tipping 10,000. So how do you go about even comparing any of these against each other? Now, this is lovely. Return on investment, benefits over costs, and you just kind of think, right, what's the lovely magic number? Unless you're in quite a large business organization where you've got a sophisticated project management team or operational department and finance team, procurement team, all of those good stuff that will do a really major deep dive into the economics of any of the technologies the company are bringing in. It's near impossible for any of us to make decisions using this. It's a complete fallacy. So what I will say to you is think a bit beyond just the cost, because return on investment, your return and the investment in it is more than just quantitative, it's qualitative as well. So what do some of those benefits look like? Can be increased revenue. How do you attribute that to your marketing technology? Not easy. You know, it might help you reduce or avoid certain costs. Again, you know, push back on your marketing tech supplier salesperson to get you the answers to what that might look like. If you're so lucky, there might be some capital reduction. If you happen to have been storing a lot of data yourself and you can now move to the cloud, super, that's reductions you can save. Better forecasting. This is super qualitative, obviously, and very difficult to measure, but it's something that's going to bring value for you. And increase customer satisfaction. Again, how could you possibly attribute that to your marketing technology? But the reality is you know, automating your communications and, you know, allowing for self-serve for your customers is going to make their experience better. Don't get me started on the costs, right? Because there are those lovely ones, the salespeople come and they say, you know, it's only 500 quid a month and, you know, it's all you can eat and all that. And you're like, this is absolutely fabulous. But anybody here who's been there, the setup costs. And I did this, and I don't know if there's anybody from HubSpot here, but very first time I used HubSpot, I was enamored. I was like, give it to me, give it to me. And I was in a small tech startup, and I said to the guy, I said, look, we don't have anybody who can do any type of coding here. Do you need to be able to do that to bring in HubSpot? No, you don't need it at all. It's a simple plug and play. Anyway, 3 days after I crashed my website because I was in poking around with code because it was the only way to make it actually integrate, I realized that I had to bring on a contractor to help me do that. So then there's the additional integrations that you want to bring in because, you know, they'll sell you all the capabilities and the features, but they'll never point out, but this is an add-on and this is an add-on. So your subscription, the really obvious one that you're going to pay on a monthly basis, and then over and above those particular add-ons that you need to think about over time. Consumption. This, you know, fair usage, all you can eat is also another fallacy because it's incredible how quickly you go over your first tier and you automatically get billed then based on that usage. Maintenance of it. It doesn't just maintain itself, and as much as their support teams can help with major glitches, otherwise it's your baby to look after. Training. Do you need to train your own team? Just because you have engineers and developers in the company does not mean they know how to maintain a piece of marketing technology. Downtime. You know, what happens if there is some downtime? What impact might that have on your revenue, on your own resource efficiency, effort? Storage, is there anything to think about what that means from a data perspective? And of course, opportunity cost. What are you going to have to give up just for taking on this piece of technology? Now, even with my management accounting hat on, this would absolutely drive me nuts to have to think about this for each one of my decisions. I'm not going to do it. And like I said, unless you've got a dedicated team, a sophisticated setup in your business that can do all of the metrics here, what I would say to everybody is actually do a little bit of eyeballing. List out all the potential benefits of it, all the potential costs, both intrinsic, extrinsic, quantitative and qualitative, and just do a little bit of an eyeball, do an educated guess. But you'll be surprised when you do this exercise how something you perceived would be way over in terms of benefits actually really isn't. And that's generally as far as you probably need to go. And it'll tell you a big story, better story than any of those sales guys or girls will when they're selling you stuff. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Natalie Drucker, Global Head of Digital Marketing Technologies for ThoughtWorks. And we're going to start off with a very simple idea that essentially online principles are broken. So, Natalie, over to you.
Thank you, Mark.
You can clap, by the way.
Hi, everyone. Before I can start this presentation, I need you all to stand up.
Wasn't expecting that.
Access granted. Thank you. You may now sit down.
Very good.
Now that you're all seated, I'm wondering, how did I make you feel? You're all sitting comfortably in your chairs, straight after lunch, ready for the next talk to start, and then this really annoying speaker comes on stage and makes you do a really unnecessary activity. Unfortunately, this is how a typical web experience in 2022 feels like. When Lou Montoli created the internet cookie, he actually wanted to do the complete opposite. He wanted to make you feel good. He wanted to create a really good user experience. The original cookie, back in the day, the internet didn't have a really good memory. Website didn't have a really good memory. And they couldn't really remember the interactions of a user with the website. So let's say if you were to add items to a shopping basket, that feature wasn't possible in 1994. And this is why Lou Montoli invented the internet cookie, to give websites this memory they were lacking. Another important principle to note is that the original cookie was invented with good privacy in mind, and it had good intentions, because it was intended just for a single website to remember the interactions with its users and not share this information with anyone else. But then came the advertisers. And in just 2 years, they managed to hack the original cookie, and they started sharing this information with other websites. And the classic example of this new type of cookie is when you search for your dream holiday, now that you can travel with COVID restrictions being lifted, and then you go back to your browser a few days later, and then you have this luxury holiday ad haunting you again and again and again. So let's fast forward to 2022. The original cookie is now referred to as first-party cookie, and then the third-party cookie, the mutant cookie is now referred to as the third-party cookie. But we all know that third-party cookies are going away, and probably for a good reason, because they're not so ethical. And you're probably wondering to yourself why it took so long since 1994 for this cookie to disappear, this type of cookie to disappear. And it's because in 1994, that was the only business model that was viable, because e-commerce was not really a thing, and advertising was the main business model that could make money. So guys like Lou Montoli actually decided to not take an action because they wanted the internet to continue and live up to its expectations. But now these third-party cookies are going away. The legislator has finally caught up. So all the MarTech vendors are raising their hopes and saying that we should all focus on first-party cookies. That's going to be the future for digital marketing. Another thing to remember is that not all first-party cookies are the same. So we've got the original cookie, which is what we refer to today as essential cookie. So these are cookies that are required for your website to work. So functionalities like the shopping basket that I mentioned before. So we can't really have websites working without these type of cookies. But then we have what I call the modern first-party cookie, which is really the optional cookie. So it's all of these other things that we do on our websites and track, and they're not really required for the website to work. And these type of cookies really power our web analytics, and then we rely on this information to do personalization, prediction, optimization, et cetera, et cetera. A very important cookie for us digital marketers. But then we have to remember there is also the law. So under EU and UK law, cookie laws, first-party optional cookies require user consent as per the GDPR's definition of consent. Now, the interesting thing is the cookie laws have been with us for quite some time now, but it's the GDPR that gave it a new meaning because it gave it a framework for how to go about implementing it. So now companies know how to go and implement these consent frameworks, and then also the legislator knows how to enforce it. So let's have a look at what the GDPR has to say about this new definition of consent. So for consent to be compliant, it has to be freely given, informed, unambiguous, given by a clear affirmative action, and easy to withdraw consent as it is to provide it. But what does it mean for us marketers? If a user doesn't give us consent to optional cookies, it means that we're going to have very limited web analytics, and we won't be able to do a lot of the things that we do in digital marketing without this data. So how did us marketers respond to that? Panic. But we gathered ourselves, and then we went on a quest to gain consent and test the boundaries of the law. So we started seeing very interesting implementations of these new consent frameworks, and the one that you see on the screen is probably one of the most popular one. And I would say that probably we have seen several consent frameworks that use dark to darkish patterns to try and force the user to give that consent so we can get the data. So let's have a look at this particular example. And again, I'm not calling any company out here. It's really just to kind of talk about the standard approach that we're seeing in the industry. So what are the problems with this framework, both from an ethical and clearly compliance perspective? The first is that the background is grey out. It means that there is a consent wall, so the user cannot access the content of the site if they don't interact with the consent pop-up. The second is that there is a highlighted agree button which attracts the user towards kind of that area and then forcing them, well, not forcing them, but really trying to attract them to click on agree and provide the consent. And the third one, there is no reject or option to close, meaning that someone that wants to do something because they came to this website for a reason probably would just hit accept because there is no other option. The interesting thing is that we're starting to see legislation across Europe and actually in other countries across the world as well. So I would say these principles they make sense for any other country that is kind of catching up on data privacy laws. We're starting to see some large fines, especially in France. So several companies have been receiving large fines recently. And also there is an activist group that is actively going and targeting companies that are using the accept manage framework and trying to get the attention of the legislator to look at them. So clearly pressure is going up. And also the legislator is seeing kind of that the interpretation of companies is not quite in line with what they imagined for these kind of consent frameworks. So we're seeing updated legislation in different countries across Europe, including the UK clearly because now it's separate law, demanding for specific design and wording for consent buttons to be compliant. And we'll just touch on that briefly. Here's an example from Gov UK who are doing a really good job. Actually, they've been compliant for quite some time now. So we've got kind of the consent banner at the top, which is not intrusive, and you can access all the content on the site without taking an action. And then also we have the accept and reject buttons, which have equal weightage. So the user is not really encouraged to click on one over the other. But let's keep that in mind, and let's try to see what's happening with these users. So while we over-engineer consent banners, and we think that we're doing a great job, this is what our users see. I'll give you a second because I understood that not many people understand what it is, but I'm a new mom actually, so this is a true story. This is what the baby sees when we put all of these really nice toys on top when they're lying in bed. So let's meet our users, and clearly there are many types of users, but for the purpose of this talk, let's generalize things a little bit. So we have two main categories of users that we're seeing in the market, but when you kind of look at your target audience, maybe try and understand the granularity because it does make sense when you go and design kind of these new frameworks. So first, we've got the average person. So this is really the majority of people. They don't really know what these cookie banners are all about, and they probably couldn't care less, but they just basically come for this website for a reason, and there is this cognitive load of what are we going to do, because I want to do one thing, but now I'm bombarded with all of these questions. So what do I do? And sometimes for this type of user, the best decision is not to make any decision, because it's just too much. And then we've got the privacy sensitive group, and this group is actually the complete opposite to the average person. This group is all about going into the browser and rejecting cookies from there. And also go to the extent of installing applications to kind of block these consent pop-ups from kind of firing altogether. And this group also goes into the manage option if there is no other option, and they actively go and manually tick everything off and reject cookies in that way. So let's keep these two user groups in mind, and let's have a look at a case study. And this is from thoughtworks.com, my company, so I'm going to reveal some interesting information. And this is, I have to mention, this is one of our earlier implementations, as we just discussed before, that the legislator is not supporting this framework anymore. And the other thing to mention is that on thoughtworks.com, as it is required, we turn off cookies, optional cookies by default. So we only have essential cookies running on the site. So as you can see, we have a non-intrusive banner, so people can still access any content on thoughtworks.com if they choose not to interact with that early implementation of our banner. We have the manage and accept buttons, and there is no option to close. So what do you think were the results and the impact to the ThoughtWorks website and our trackable traffic? Well, I can tell you it was huge. So we lost 70% of trackable traffic in comparison to the previous period. And let's have a look at the granularity, because we have the two user group in mind. So 60% of users ignored it as expected, or they didn't see the banner because they had some applications blocking it. And they continued to browse without optional cookies, meaning we don't have anything, any information about them. And then we have these 10% that went in and clicked and managed their cookie preferences from there. So as expected, it's just a much smaller user group. So the key to remember here is that even though we have two very different groups, the kind of final result is the same. They both continued without accepting the cookies. So if an option is given, because we didn't really block the website, so the content could still be accessed, then most users would just not accept the cookies. And that's something to remember. So for us marketers, what is more important? Is it more important to gain consent at all cost, or create a good user experience? I would like to leave you with this question. We're going to watch a short video. And just something about the video. It's not just about cookies, but a lot of the functionalities that you see there are powered by cookies. So let's have a look.
We're so glad you're here. In order to enter our exclusive store, I'm just going to need your email address.
Why do you need that? I'm just here for a carton of eggs.
Still going to need that email.
Fine, it's asdf@yourmama.com.
Excellent. Happy shopping.
Looks like you're making a special anniversary dinner. What? Based on the items in your cart, I can make a few recommendations. Like a nice bottle of champagne, spice up the romance.
No, I'm doing a birthday dinner for my grandma. She just turned 86 in a nursing home.
And if I can also recommend sweet pea and violet bubble bath.
Why?
Perfect for that sensual soak.
Ooh.
After a special evening.
No.
Hello there.
Hello.
Would you like suggestions based on your purchases?
Absolutely not.
Hey, just the eggs? Yes. Would you like to share your purchase on Facebook and Twitter?
No.
Well, how about Instagram? Let's take a selfie with the eggs. Hashtag best cashier ever.
Just give me my receipt.
Can I email that to you? Can you give me your email again? Because asdf@yourmama.com didn't go through.
Hey, friend, you look a little frustrated. You know there's always time to chat.
Oh, get me out of here.
Wait, come back. Did you have any questions or concerns? What about the overall shopping experience? Would you say it was truly exceptional, above average, or fair? Are you likely to recommend us to friends or family? On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like amazing.
Creepy, huh? So were we to implement something like this in the physical store? Probably not. So why is it okay for us digital marketers to implement such experiences in an online environment? And I believe that we can do better than that. Let's go back to the fundamentals of marketing, because iconic brands were created before the era of cookies, when there was a lot less data. So what can we learn from that era when these really big brands, really great brands were created? So today I want to share with you a new mindset, so marketing in a cookieless world. With this mindset, marketers are less reliant on cookie data to deliver user and business value. It's about embracing the fundamentals of marketing, creating human experiences, build trust, and have users want to share data in exchange for value. So today, I want to share with you marketing in a cookieless world principles, and there are 5 of them, so we have to jump into it because we don't have a lot of time left for this talk. So the first is to make good first impressions. We touched a little bit about that during the talk. So users today usually are faced with a sea of pop-ups, and it takes like about 5 clicks to just kind of be able to do what you wanted to do on that website. And that's not a very good experience. So let's have a look at the example on the right, which is from a company called Bedthreads. I actually didn't know them before preparing for this talk, but they made such a good first impression, so I decided to even feature them. So these kind of few moments when someone lands on your website, it really matters. So how do you kind of still become compliant? Like these guys, they show a consent banner, but it doesn't take away from the overall experience. A critical moment for companies to consider. The second is pull versus push strategy. So at thoughtworks.com, which is what you see on the screen, we decided to ungate nearly all of our content on the website. So instead of asking people for their email addresses to access things, we allow them to engage with the content. What you see on the screen is our premium technology radar piece of content, which is very, very popular. And then if someone likes the content, they can give us their details at the end. And to be honest, if someone doesn't like your brand, then you probably don't want their email regardless. So people that like what you have to offer will follow you. The third one is contextual value exchange. And the example you see on the screen is actually not a real one. It's a mock that I created because it's quite a new concept. So today users come to your website and they reject cookies immediately, and then there is no other opportunity to try and get those I would say, pieces of information again. So let's try to make it contextual. So in this example, I was just adding an item to the cart, and then clearly you have the notification that the item was added to the cart. So maybe over there, that's an opportunity to give a piece of value to the user. So if the user wants to save this basket for later, they can either log in, or if they want to stay anonymous, they can accept the cookie, so the cart will be remembered for more than, I would say, just a few hours or 7 days, so when I can come back to complete the purchase. The fourth principle is ask instead of guess. So clearly marketing nirvana is to be able to do personalization. That's kind of been the thing that we've been working towards as MarTech teams and digital marketing teams for many, many years. But when we go into a physical store, it's okay for the seller to ask us why we're here today. So why can't we just mimic that and instead of guess, just create that good experience from the start? So this is an example of a college in Australia, and they do exactly that. They ask the user what are they here to do, and then the content clearly changes as per their selection. And the other important thing here is that because the user has made a selection, this is considered as zero-party data, and this is something that we can record in our web analytics. And the fifth principle is give VIP segments a reason to log in. So on the right-hand side, you see an example of British Airways, which again in B2C it's a little bit easier because a lot of these brands, they have loyalty programs and there is an immediate reason for someone to log in. In this case, I was trying to book an Avios flight, so clearly I had to do it from the beginning of the session. In B2B, it's a little bit more difficult because usually there's just a general website for all type of customers. So I provide an example here from Gartner. So clearly they do a lot of events. So there is a reason to kind of go back if you kind of follow Gartner to see what's going on there. And then they do another thing. They provide exclusive content as part of this. So you can access exclusive research that you should probably pay for if you just go to the general website. And you can access it for free as part of this events app. And I have access because I have attended several of their events. Clearly I paid for them. So that's a really great example that B2B can also create that kind of VIP special experience. So let's recap the 5 principles for effective marketing in a cookieless world. We've got 1, make good first impressions. 2, pull versus push strategy. Contextual value exchange. ask instead of guess, and then review offerings for VIP segments. Now, I can stand in all day. I have a lot of content to share with you, but I'm afraid that we are at the end of this session. So I would like to leave you with a final thought. Don't get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Embrace the principle of marketing in a cookieless world, so you will no longer need cookies. They'll no longer be your problems. Thank you.
Tremendous amount of common sense in that. Our third speaker is Veronica Saha, Head of Analytics at Zoopla, talking about how you actually use analytics for personalization. So, Veronica.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. I would like to start with a question. Can you remember an online experience that was delightful? No more broken links, spinning wheel, or the wrong page. Let's imagine that every online interaction is intuitive, clear, and tailored to you. Let's take the example of Zoopla. Let's say you share with Zoopla some information about your ideal home, a location, number of bedrooms, a size of garden, closeness to schools, and this can go on and so on. But what if you share something personal? Add some personal flavor, like I love wood fireplaces, or crown molding, or I really need to know if hedgehogs are acceptable pets in a building. And then every search result, every recommendation, every piece of content you receive from Zoopla is tailored to you and to your needs. Wouldn't that make you engage longer, come back over and over, and in some other cases, buy over and over again? I should have moved to this slide for what I just said, but in 2013, Marissa Mayer was talking about the future being personalization. What I would like to say to that, almost 10 years later, that future is happening right now. And the reason is simple. One size doesn't fit all anymore. Mass communication, generic product offering doesn't work. And it's about consumers. In 2022, they are willingly sharing personal data with the brands for tailored experiences. Not only they share that, they really expect it. They expect to be recognized across platforms like web and app. They expect to be recognized across devices. They expect a convenient interaction with the brand, and they expect to engage with the brand 24/7. A McKinsey study last year found out that 71% of customers are already expecting personalized interactions with the brands they are engaging with. 76% get frustrated when that doesn't happen. So clearly it's not enough to bring customers in through clever marketing. We need to delight them with thoughtful interactions. But personalization is really valuable for a brand as well. It has a huge impact on engagement and brand loyalty. Just think about that fuzzy feeling when you open the newest iPhone box and you are one of the first 100 customers to be able to do that. It feels nice, right? These thoughtful interactions create a sense of belonging and community, and in result you get positive word-of-mouth marketing. Brands can charge more when the values of the brand and the values of the customer are aligned. Just think about North Face. If you are a mountaineer, that's the place you go. That's the place you resonate with. Or Porsche, for instance, if you're a car enthusiast. When there is disalignment in values, and when brands invest in the relationship, not just the transaction, you get a really positive brand interaction and engagement. When it comes to personalization, at Zoopla we focus on two areas: communication, email communication, where we aim for relevant, but most importantly, timely communication. We want people to have the right information at the right time to make the decision they need to make. We are also focusing on journey personalization, and we try to build all these pathways mapped to customer types. So when it comes to property, we talk about buyers and sellers and renters, and then people in between who buy and sell in the same time, and they can rent a property in the middle of this journey. So what do we need to do to make personalization happen? What needs to happen behind the scenes? I'm going to talk you through the 4 elements that we've put in place in Zoopla to be able to apply personalization. First and foremost, it's data. Data captured, and most importantly, data shared by user with our brand. You've heard just now from Natalie talking about the cookieless world. That's the world we're going to be living in, not too long from now. So what does that mean for us? It means the brands need to build trust, so users are sharing data, and also they need to be very transparent about what happens with that data, how it's being processed and used, and even when it comes to personalization, the brands need permission in order to build the trust down the line. As much as we would like to personalize every interaction, that's not really the case. It would be really, really, really hard to do that. So we need to be really deliberate about where we apply personalization. What are the right points where it makes sense for customer, where it brings the most benefit to the customer, but also to Zoopla. Experimentation, I think it's a crucial part of this process because it allows us to iterate and improve our product and also match customer expectations. And we've built hypothesis testing into the product development, and we are able to test at user level or audience level. All these elements are really important, but they would not deliver their maximum value without automated workflows. So we need scalability, we need automation in order to take all this data, all this enhancement, and put it in front of customers. Drilling a bit deeper into this framework, the game changer for us was the creation of the comprehensive view of the customer, of single customer view. You probably heard it before. This is not a new idea. It's been around in the marketing circles for probably more than 20 years. But what's special at this point in time is that we can collect, enhance, and deploy data at scale and in near real time. And that's really, really special. We've never been able to do that in the past. And in our case, we've chosen Segment, the customer data platform, to build our view of the customer. And through all this tailored integration and custom functions that Segment has, we've been able to connect it to machine learning models. And for us, predicting intent is really important. And I'm not talking about the super creepy element of it where the machine will know exactly what you're going to do next. But when it comes to property, it can take months and years to move and buy a new house, which means for Zoopla it's really important to know if someone is at the beginning, middle, of end of their buying journey. So this is what we are trying to do with machine learning. When it comes to the journey mapping, again, we wanted to be very, very specific about the points where we introduce personalization. And this is something that analysts and designers and product teams have been working together. And the leading question was, what is the next best action for the customer? And the answer to that question would inform product work down the line. I mentioned earlier, experimentation, I think, is crucial when it comes to personalization because nobody has the answer to everything. So we need to test and learn all the time. We've chosen Optimizely as an experimentation platform, and the reason for that was we wanted to have the ability to test on the front end part of the website. We wanted to test server-side, so we have no delay, no flicker on the page. And also we wanted the ability to test on the native app. Someone mentioned earlier that we always need to think forward, right, when we choose tools for marketing or analytics. It's really important to think about your stack 1 or 2 years in advance if possible, because as you acquire more and more tools, they need to be able to expand and they need to be able to integrate down the line. This is just an example of our attempts to optimize the sign-in journey. In summary, this is a bird's eye view of our analytics stack for personalization. I mentioned earlier the creation of the single customer view is essential. And we've landed at this framework iteratively. So what we made sure of was that everything we've added after segment, let's say optimizely or iterable for email, has this expansion capability. It's connected to everything else around it. And again, I think you mentioned earlier, is never out of the box, is never plug and play, even if, that's the official line. But nevertheless, we wanted to make sure that Optimizely can connect to segment. Was the easiest connection? No, it wasn't. It was plug and play, not really. But we get it done, and now we are able to test whatever audience we have in segment. We can test it through Optimizely. And all this learning, all this intent prediction, all this segmentation is being done in segment. And again, we have automated integration to iterable. So whenever someone signs up to newsletter, let's say, and they say, I'm a first-time buyer, they receive emails and they are on an email journey that's tailored and automated for that particular type of customer. When it comes to journey personalization, I mentioned earlier the automatic workflows, the APIs, that bring all this information in front of customers. And I'm going to show some examples in a minute. Probably I'm saying this for the third time now, but keep in mind when you build your stack, look for the tools that have future capabilities if possible. So with that, here are some examples. The box with a few templates, it's an example of templates tailored to customer types. So if you're a buyer, a seller, a renter, you receive a different type of email, a different type of message. On this box, you'll see personalization at property level. So if you're a homeowner in the UK, I'm pretty sure you want to know if the value of the property goes up or down. So this sort of messaging, informing customers about the value of their property at property level drove a lot of engagement and retention. When it comes to journey personalization, this is an example of using some data from the single customer profile sent through the personalization API to the website. So in this particular case, we've intercepted the sign-in journey, and we prompted users to join our email program to track their home and receive future updates going forward. And that little box with the postcode in it is the personalization bit that we knew from a previous interaction with the customer. But what this is doing is making their job really easy. The information is there, it's tailored to them, they just need to click a button and they're going to start receiving the tailored messaging down the line. So in summary, I would say the era of personalization is here and also expected by the customer. Comprehensive view of the customer is essential. That's where our data is, and it's really, really important to get really good at building trust so we are able to collect data about the customers in the future. and we also need to be respectful of their privacy. And finally, the analytics stack now is an integral part of the process. So we are not just IT or marketing, now we are part of the personalization journey. Thank you.
Any questions? Cross that, please.
Hi, it's Callum Miller, Millersoft Limited. With all the smart technology, marketing technology on offer, I just wonder what percentage of your week are you still spending in front of Excel? And is it more or less than it was 5 years ago?
Well, that obviously hit a chord because half the room went, Right, who wants to do that?
I'm going to be really terrible and ask you to repeat it. With my Irish ears might need.
All right. He said, what percentage of your working week is spent? He says, huge advantages in technology, but what percentage of your working week has been spent in front of Excel?
Oh. Actually, a lot, but not because of lack of marketing technology. I'm managing most of my budgets out of Excel, where I'd much rather a really slick set of finance type technology to be managing it from. So I'd say 5% of my time in Excel.
I would probably be the same. We have quite extensive project management layers you suggested. So they take care of most of the things in Excel, and then we've got a really good finance team that we work with. And then in terms of the marketing data, we barely need Excel to process things. So it's all in the MarTech tools themselves. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
Veronica?
Yeah, what I would say, personally, I use it, I know, a few times a week. But when it comes to my team, as analyst, you always have to use Excel for bits and pieces. And also when you try to work with other teams, other companies, you still use spreadsheets. So I don't think they will go away completely. And also, even if you have a great visualization tool, but you can't really connect it to your database for whatever reason, everything goes into a spreadsheet and then it's being visualized. So we are much better at automation than we've been, but I don't think spreadsheets will go completely away anytime soon.
Remember, I'm not from your world. 5% of your time doesn't sound to me like an awful lot. I mean, who in this room here reckons they spend more than 5% of the working week in Excel? Wow.
But I guess it really depends on the team, because clearly my analytics team would spend a lot more time than me, because I'm not going in and doing everything. Yeah. So the BI team, we'll still have to do, and especially when you're experimenting, when the data is not quite in the right set and stuff, you have to import Excel into the BI tool and do experimentation. So maybe thinking of myself 5%, but thinking of my team, so thank you for that. They probably use it.
Yeah, I'd echo the same. If that was directed individually, that would be my time, but absolutely my acquisition team would live their lives in Excel. That's natural. So it's completely role dependent.
Can I go back to the question? What the implication behind your question seemed to be that, okay, fine, it's Excel, but surely there should be something better by now. Am I reading that wrongly?
Yeah, I was just intrigued by the spreads of the marketing technology sort of landscape. And I mean, my background is obviously in IT, and I see Excel embedded in various environments. So I just wondered if the hands in the marketing department were actually coming off Excel, or whether it was being used as regularly as I thought, and it seems to be it still is. Yeah.
Well, actually, Excel is your typical no-code, low-code. You can do, very basic things, but then you got to get into your macros if you want to do anything sexy with Excel. So it's
Sorry?
for me.
Is that even possible?
I've seen some very special, actually, from the BI team do some absolutely amazing things with it. But it does, you need to be able to get in under the code and be very formulaic in how you build these things, and there's a build involved. and this is why a lot of these marketing technologies have this stuff built into it, so it's just dragging and dropping, so you don't need to do that. But it's the same concept.
Okay, thank you for the question. Any other questions? Right at the front here, please. Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. Hi, Dave from Boots again. Today's presentation, or this afternoon's presentation, is the first time I've heard real-time mentioned, which I'm surprised by actually, because 2 years ago it was the only thing anyone ever talked about. Just to the panel, how far up your priority would real-time be?
I can start with that. Let's say people would be fine if they would receive information 3 hours later or the next day when it comes to property, right? So let's say for property, probably real time is not the most important element, but it's also a good experience when you sign up for, a newsletter and then 5 minutes later you have it, right? Coming to Edinburgh and buying my ticket, and then I had to reset my password or whatever, I really need that email 2 minutes later or 1 minute later, right? So I guess depends very much about, the industry, the company, the service you want to provide. Like I said, for property wasn't necessarily the most important thing, but this was a capability that Segment provided, and when you have it in the box, why not using it? And then if you combine it with Iterable, which is a great delivery tool, and you put these two together, then there is no need for us to wait for Pete to come the next day and press the button to deliver the email. So, like I said, I guess depends on the context.
I can definitely say under Zai, one of our brands is Currency Fair, which is International Currency Exchange. So real time is really important. So as the markets change, obviously, and even if it's as simple as rate alert emails, you absolutely need to be on the ball. So I completely echo what Veronica said. It completely depends on the service and it comes back to your customer, right? What's the urgency for them? And then you got to be able to get onto their cadence and not try and force them onto yours. And I definitely know from a currency exchange perspective, they're looking for a rate and they're looking to move really quickly. So you better be on the same pace as them. So.
Anything to add, Natalie?
I'm actually echoing the same message, so probably we can move on to the next question.
Yeah.
It's efficient.
No, it's clean and efficient, no problem at all. Another question at all from the floor? Yeah, I do wonder, and just while you're thinking about it, I do wonder if this has it's got too clever, it's got too advanced, it's got too intrusive. I mean, the video that was shown about going into the shop and the folk following about saying, how would you rate your experience? That's happening in my home, it's happening in my car, it's happening, wherever I am, some silly bugger's chasing me, looking for information or wanting me to do something. It just becomes tiresome after a while.
It does, but there's a lot of advantages of personalization. What really frustrates me about it is the echo chamber I find myself in online. I'm just listening to myself talk back at myself at the things that I'm looking at. And I'm more worried personally. I like the tailored version because there's lots of things I don't want to get delivered. But then there's lots of things I didn't know I want to get delivered to me that now I'm completely blocked off of because I have been absolutely boxed into this. I am an age group, I am a whatever. I've searched on these things, but I don't know what I don't know. And that's the thing that worries about me around the personalization is I'm not getting exposed to new things that I'd never ordinarily look for. So I'm more interested in, and look, maybe this is, really analytics getting into, way down the line and figuring out what I want before I even know I want it myself, right? That's where it get really weird, but really cool, right? But I think there's advantages and disadvantages to it, and there's tools to turn these things off. I think that's the bigger piece of it. It's just, to the point earlier, was that some people are hiding those tools to turn it off.
That idea of the echo chamber is a fascinating one, folks. I mean, again, I can only sort of give an example from a broadcasting standpoint, that things begin. We put forward an idea for something quite recently, and the commissioning editor's approach was, yes, but what's it like? As in, what does this program idea resemble? And we said, well, nothing. And they'd know where to start from. It's, as you say, you're getting more and more of the same. It's the same. It's cycling. As somebody said the other day, Back in the old days, we had 2 television channels. Now we've got hundreds with a dazzling array of baking programs. You know, I mean, it's, you know, that a lot of what you do is very clever, but as you say, it's limiting. It's actually limiting choice more than anything.
Yeah, it is.
How do you break out of that?
Well, I think the main problem is that we're stuck a lot in the features, because in MarTech now there's so much opportunity and we all have to do personalization, we all have to predict. It's like we get addicted to get to that stage. And sometimes I listen to my own marketing, the team, and this becomes the goal. And it's not about creating like a good user experience, it's about having this tool and having this capability. And as you mentioned, like I want this feature, and then we buy it, and then it's like, okay, and then what? So some brands, you know, we have like the Netflix of the world where they kind of bake that into the product, and Netflix without personalization would really suck. And apparently now you can turn it off in Netflix so they don't kind of follow you outside of the session, so they can't really know who you are, and they kind of look at the, I would say, patterns of engagement instead of kind of connecting that to you.
Why do you say that without personalization it would really suck?
No, Netflix without personalization would really suck, because it keeps recommending you things and shows that you would never go and choose, and it just knows you so well. So personally, I'm happy to give them my data because it saves me hours. Like if you go in front of the TV at the end of the day, you don't want to spend an hour to search, you know, what to look for, and like search for a TV show to look for. So it's a lot easier. It's saving me a problem. But for most services, most brands that we deal with, they kind of don't have that baked into the product. And for some brands, they just shouldn't. So I was kind of saying, maybe we just need to ask what this person is trying to do. Maybe not everyone needs to guess. Some brands maybe need to guess because they can, like in Netflix, but we just need to assess where you're on the curve. And let's not get like addicted, obsessed with the MarTech tool and the feature, and try to prioritize the human. And then, okay, how can we bring the technology to do that again? It's actually a bit sad because we kind of see the rise of user experience as a practice. And in my opinion, this should be marketing. Marketing should be about user experience design, but we kind of lost that bit. And my husband is actually an experienced designer, and he tends to work a lot with marketing teams, and usually marketing is the department that doesn't collaborate at all, and that should be the department that cares about the customer. So I think there needs to be something that we need to learn from user experience. What are we actually trying to create for the customer? And then kind of go back and re-engineer the tools to support that.
And we tend to design the experience we want the customer to go on, and that as marketers, that's user experience, as opposed to probably what your husband does is what's the experience the customer wants, and let's then design for that.
Gee, I don't know. Coming back, it's maybe a generational thing. I enjoy the happy accidents. You know, occasionally bored out of my head with the television that's in front of me, I'll be going through the channels and I'll hit on something that, you know, I've no interest in, no interest whatsoever. And it hooks my attention just for long enough, and I end up, I mean, without a word of a lie, the last 3 really good programs I've ended up watching arrived that way. Not because Netflix thought it might be a good idea for me, but because I just tripped across it. Am I alone?
You didn't just trip across it though. Think about all the different channels that you're on. Certain channels now have a certain curation of content based on the type of people and the generation that are watching it.
Careful.
So they're making decisions. So that program is particularly designed around you being on that channel. So
yes, I watched yesterday. I'm not ashamed of it.
I would say they have a persona of someone like yourself that wants to be surprised, and they will have other personas that don't want to be surprised. So they're very, very good with what they do.
Okay.
But just most brands just don't have that capability, don't have the large marketing team, large analytics team to do it. So we just have to be realistic. So like, how much do you put on tech, and how much do you just think about humans? Yeah.
But for years now, I mean, you people have been thinking about this. That's what you do. But you know, for years, most people, it's been in the background. And I wonder, one of the downsides, or upsides possibly, of COVID, is that for the first time, lots of people were stuck at home thinking, why? Why do they want me to push that button?
I would like to add something. In the past, right, given the number of many channels on the TV, we try to narrow and find the channel or the show we were interested in. It's almost like the opposite with personalization. You get the tailored experience on mobile or on various brands, but then you need to build in this expansion exercise, right? Like, I tend to read articles when they pop up on my phone, various newspapers, but then I took a flight and I took a newspaper and I enjoyed reading the whole of it. And it was such a nice experience, to your point. And I think we need to consciously bring this serendipity, this expansion of views, but it's going to be really hard, and it's going to be another challenge for all of us, not just marketers, to navigate this new world where personalization comes at us and we don't know what to do with it. It's a bit like with cookies, right? It was free for all, it was great, made a lot of money. Now we are restricting them and we find a new normal. I think it's the same principle with personalization as well, and that means more change, more uncertainty, more stress, but that's kind of the world we choose to live in. So.
Okay. Any other question? Nope. I just saw the hand and no more.
Hi. Just wondering what your organisations plan to do when like Google and Chrome starts to block cookies, and just how you might approach personalisation then.
So it's just important to know that it's about third-party cookies, so you're still going to have information of your old brand. So I think what like all the vendors are now saying, so we are Adobe customers, for example, so Adobe only talks about first-party data. It was really interesting because we are a US-based company, so our account is from the US. And when I told them about the differences in first-party data, they're not aware of the laws that we have here. And actually, these laws exist in some states in the US. So it's just we're not going to have all of this data that we had before. So I think, yeah, first-party data is important, but it's just not all of the anonymous data. So I think what you're doing, because a lot of your customers are probably what users are logged in, so you can do a lot more with that information. So that's why the fifth principle was to kind of go to that zero-party data, or choose, like, ask people, what are you here to do? Because when someone gives you the information, then you're allowed to record it. But yeah, with Chrome, it's really just the third-party data, which, for example, at ThoughtWorks, we didn't really use third-party data even before. So for us, there is no impact on what's happening with Chrome at all. Maybe a little bit on retargeting, but again, we haven't done too much of that because just ethically, we didn't believe in this type of tactic for our brand. So I guess first-party data, but then zero-party data is probably what I would recommend.
Yeah, this goes back to building trust and getting people to share their data willingly and getting them to sign in. Just think about Facebook, right? You can't do anything without signing in, so they are collecting everything. Other brands relied on analytics to capture all the click streams and every interaction. But again, going forward, we can't rely as much on anonymous data as before, so we need to think differently, and that's why it's interesting, this challenge that the cookieless world brings. We need to think about experience. We need to think about trust. We need to think about transparency. It just changes the game.
On my side, on the Zai brand, it's very B2B, so going super heavy on content marketing for that value exchange piece. I'm not expecting to get information for free. I want to give my audience something first, and then if they're really interested, they're going to come to me. So that's on that side. On the consumer side, then I tend to work much more heavily with affiliate partners and bottom of funnel intent, so that people are coming to my affiliate partners because they're literally looking to exchange money pretty promptly. So that tells me as much as I need to know at that stage. But I echo what the lady said.
This idea of, I want to give you something first before you give me something back is fine. But the fact is, you know the value of what it is you're offering, and really they don't. So it's an unequal partnership or a relationship in that case.
It's relative to what the piece of offering is. So if somebody is Googling for top 10 tips on buying MarTech, and I've happened to have written a piece on here are the top 10 tips, they're looking for it. They have actually initiated the want. I happen to make sure I was there to be found. And that's the difference around content marketing, as opposed to different now if I just bombarded them with ads and, pay me as a consultant and I'll give you the top 10 tips. That's a very, very different piece. So it's that pull-push marketing.
Okay. Any more? Oh, one more question. Okay.
Hi. It's just going on to the issue of, said before, the trust side of things with the cookies. I think everybody would like in the happy world to have that personalization, but because of bad examples gone beforehand, we're now faced where we are now. How do we move to the personalization while maintaining trust? Because otherwise, we'll, as Natalie said, I'm the number 2 person, the privacy kind of aware, but without that kind of tracking, we'll end up where, as Natalie said, the hit rates went down, which also impacts like journalists who are measured by the hits on their articles. Won't there always be a way to go around it where they can follow the rules, but in fact, your data is being rerouted via the US, via India, via Philippines. There will always be somebody out there to manipulate it for a profit gain.
Yeah, I think just on the KPIs, that's critical because I'm seeing so many marketing teams prioritizing the wrong KPIs. So if we just have different KPIs that encourage value exchange and trust, then we won't need to track all of these things because it could be that we're actually tracking kind of the wrong thing, I would say. So as I said before, like we don't want these email addresses of people that are not interested in our brand. So maybe just sometimes volume, for example, is not the right one because if I collect a lot of email addresses but I can't convert them to anything, then I just don't need all of that data. So that's my perspective on it.
What I would say is that probably the metrics have to change as well. Not necessarily to make life easier, but if we change the conversation, if we change the engagement model, if you want, which is kind of what we are doing, then KPIs have to follow that. So it's just another way of thinking about measuring data, using data, measuring ourselves.
Yeah. It's interesting, while you were speaking earlier, somebody said something along the lines of everyone wants a personalised service, and I've written down, I don't. You know, I don't want a personalised service. I don't want, you know, I don't care whether they know who I am or not. I really don't. I just, you know, I want to buy the object. I don't want to have a chum or a relationship or anything else of the kind. And again, I don't know whether that's a generational thing or what. I mean, does anybody else in the room feel that way?
No, it's not generational.
It's not generational, thank you.
Do you follow a
I'd be happier if you were younger. But
Mark, do you follow football? Is there a club you follow?
Not really, no.
Any sport?
Not really, no.
What are your hobbies?
Well, basically, I've got a small holding, so I spend a hell of a lot of time keeping that standing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So would you be interested in products and services that would help you do that?
All the time. All the time. Bandsaw blades, you name it. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but the thing is, that doesn't work, Andrea, because when the bandsaw breaks, I order the blade. I don't want somebody to tell me you might need a bandsaw blade sometime in the future.
No, but if you saw a sign that the hardware store down the road was doing a special offer for the next 2 weeks, and even before the blade breaks, you'd be like, oh, I can get them for like 20 pence each.
Why did you get those?
Wouldn't you like to have that information?
Yeah, I would like to have that information. It's just when it's coming from, you know, that into my home. Unless if it passed the shop, I would be quite happy with it. For some reason, I don't like it on that, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah, and it's that physical piece of it, right? Because when that is in your hand, and whether as opposed to you walking past a hardware shop and you happen to see the sign that says they're £20, is that a better price for?
That'd be too much. Right, any other comments from anybody?
Well, I've got a comment to that.
Go on then. It's coming behind you. There you go. So everybody can hear.
I feel like I'm defending the room here. I think good personalisation would recognise that you don't want to be bothered and leave you alone.
Really? Okay.
And Jude talked earlier on about taking out people who don't respond to your emails from your email list. Yeah. That's an example of saying you don't want to be bothered, so don't bother you. And that's actually good personalisation.
Oh, hang on a second, so just so everybody can hear you.
If you sign up to something and then you decide you don't want to go to that thing, you can just unsubscribe from that as well. So if you've signed up, that means you're getting all these notifications to say bye, bye, bye. You could also get the control and go, don't want that anymore. So it's also up to the customer as well.
Yeah, but the trouble with that is if I've signed up for something, in order to get the information in the first place. I don't know. Does that information then just disappear magically, or is that information already somewhere else that I didn't want it to be in the first place? That's what I don't know before I make that decision.
Just on the point on the channel, though, I think a lot of us kind of translate personalization to email personalization. And one thing about kind of the new generations, they don't really use email. And the email is kind of being used for, I would say, more critical thing. It's kind of a private place. So as Brian, we just need to think about how do we engage outside of email, and for someone to follow you, it doesn't have to be email. So I think we just need to expand the horizon a little bit. Because also just we're seeing a lot of emails are kind of being blocked by, spam and all of that. So email is just not the way probably for personalization, because less and less people as younger, if your demographic for your brand is younger, it's just a less reliant, a less relevant channel, I would say.
Yeah, okay. If that's it, folks, I'm tempted to round it up there. Can I ask you to thank our three speakers one more time? In fact, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the speakers today. I'm sure you agree they've been of a very high quality. Thank you too to our conference partners, exhibitors and sponsors. The exhibition area upstairs will remain open until 4:30. If you haven't had the chance already, give them a visit and meet the sponsors. It's also the last chance to give your details away. Digit, if you're wearing those badges, Digit will recycle those badges. So just leave them upstairs at the desk if you wouldn't mind. That'll be grand. And there's a drinks reception in the Stratosphere. There is a conference survey. Now, this is not a pointless exercise by any manner or means. It's quite genuinely used by Digit to try and improve and enhance and shape in the future what future conferences are actually likely to be. It doesn't take terribly long. If you can find a couple of moments to do it, that would be really valuable. Thank you very much. I'll just flag up the next few events. Digit North, 19th of May. That's next week, isn't it? Bloody hell. That's up in Aberdeen at P&G Live. That's in person. Cloud First Summit, 16th of June, in person. That's here at Dynamic Earth. FinTech Summit at Dynamic Earth. And Digit Expo, which is the biggie. That's on the 10th of November, which is at the Exhibition Centre here in Edinburgh. As said, there is a networking drinks reception up in the Stratosphere. For myself, Mark Stephen, thank you very much for your attention, and a safe journey home, folks. Thank you.